as people have tried to stomp that out because there's so much power in having that knowledge, then we found ourselves burning people at the stake. That's where I really kind of feel like my feminism lives right now, is knowing that it's really important to continue to have those people that are willing to speak out in whatever way, regardless of whatever the context.
Hello, Starseeds, and welcome to episode 4 of Musings from the Rainbow Sparkle Palace. It is my joy and honor to highlight the voice of Berea, Kentucky's own Blair. The first word that comes to mind when I think of Allie is badass, and the second would be selfless. Allie is a social entrepreneur who basically is the driving force behind the revitalization of Berea's only downtown area, known as Old Town. It was formerly much of a ghost town, really. And the concert series that she has brought to this town, I think it's like $50,000 altogether. It goes into this concert series every summer. And it's brought a thing to do on the weekend to Berea, where formerly there was often literally nothing going on in town. And it's brought big names such as Rising Appalachia to give concerts for free to the public. The artists do get paid well, however. Allie and I have similarly been banned on Facebook for posting witchy content, and the myriad community organizing and community revitalizing projects that she has just really wow me with the amount of creativity that she has and excite me for the future of this town. It's amazing what one woman can do, despite a lot of flack from some of the same people that you heard in the episode with Emily LaDouceur, the city councilwoman. There's a small group of people in town who say that they're Christian and yet have nothing but mean things to say about Allie, and none of them are true. Allie was also the driving force recently behind efforts to make our city council meetings more inclusive. Meanwhile, there was a small group of Christians who were trying to exclude people who were not of the Christian faith. It's a long, hard battle for an atheist who really is seeking to unite people and allow a space that is inclusive for all people. But I believe that if anybody can do it, it's certainly Allie. She has the drive and the ability to motivate and gather and move people into action. And that's something that I really admire. And I really think it's beautiful to have a space here on this podcast to outline the myriad ways that one single woman's vision and power and refusal to back down and do as she's told and keep her mouth shut is really transforming our city into a place where there's some hope here, and there are family-friendly activities that will allow for a space that may keep some teens out of trouble and young people out of trouble. And she's also modeling something that we have not seen here in Berea yet, and something I think maybe some people here, because Berea is kind of like a vortex, kind of like Lexington, Kentucky is also a vortex. When you're here, you kind of don't want to leave, and you don't spend much time outside of Berea. So seeing opportunities in the realm of music, in the realm of the vendors that are brought to this concert series, it gives me hope. In this interview, I mention a must-read, the book Witches, Sluts, Feminists by Kristen Soley. Here's an excerpt from Witches, Sluts, Feminists. It was largely because of the witch trials that a woman's testimony would come to be admissible. Up until that time, women were considered dependents of their husbands or male family members and were mostly ignored by European courts. That European women first emerged into full legal adulthood as witches, that they were first accorded independent legal status in order to be prosecuted for witchcraft, indicates both their vulnerability and the level of anti-feminism in modern European society. The book goes on to say, women remain demonized in the third millennium. In America, they are persecuted in the public and private spheres by individual men and entire bodies of male legislators. They are targets for sexual assault, sexual harassment, and laws limiting reproductive rights and abortion access. They are targets of Planned Parenthood gunmen and misogynistic extremists like Isla Vista shooter Elliot Rodger, the 22-year-old who killed 6 and injured 14 people in 2014 as vicious payback for his perceived sexual failings. And when women aren't being physically attacked, they are publicly shamed, particularly those who campaign for sexual freedom and reproductive rights. Witch meet slut. As the initial parallels between the witch and the slut reveal, slut-shaming and rape culture are poisonous blooms from the seeds of misogyny sown centuries ago. When Europeans began to cross the Atlantic, they brought this legacy of brutality to American soil, where it would take root in disturbing new ways. And to get a little personal here, I was raised Catholic, and in college came to encounter such a wider world that I no longer could see the God that I was raised with in the bigger world. I just did not see evidence of that anywhere outside of my small home, living with my family and my small community. And honestly, I do credit marijuana with opening my perception to a greater connection with something much bigger than the God that I grew up with. And my understanding, my personal spirituality has no name or face. My idea of it changes every time I speak about it. I hope that it's like that until I die. I don't want to ever say that I know what forces rule the universe and what is behind them, but I can tell you that I have noticed intellectually that when I choose to have faith that things are going to turn out okay, I make better decisions. So that is something tangible that I can turn to. Rather than moving through the world in fear, I have learned that I can turn to having faith and just focusing on all the times in the past that I have been taken care of and choosing to believe that if it's not okay, it's not the end. Here at the Rainbow Sparkle Palace, that is my tiny house and homestead here in the woods in the Appalachian foothills, I do have my beautiful little altar. It's the tiniest altar maybe you've ever seen, and it's full of magical things from my travels and art that I've made and natural things from the woods and things that are precious to me and hold beauty and reminders of my connection to the greater entity of the world. And I have really seen, as I grew away from Catholicism, I really started, I see more and more every day, honestly, the pernicious, pervasive misogyny within that. There's so many practices within Catholicism for me that seek to exclude women from places of power and reverence. Though it's strange. There's this, like, when you speak to some people within Catholicism, you'll hear, well, women are revered, because of Mother Mary, and we revere them and we honor them, and that's why we don't allow them to do certain things. I think that's a screwed up, backwards way to look at it. In my mind, if I revere and honor something, I will allow it to be what it is in its own way and respect its ability to be whole and complete without my cooperation. When I think of things that I honor and revere, I think of the triple trunk oak that is in the woods, and it's not something that I feel like I need to control because it is whole and complete in its ability to perform its role in the world. It doesn't need my protection, it doesn't need my interference, etc. So that's rainbow spirituality in a nutshell. So without further ado, here is my interview with Blair.
Just to give you a little background on the purpose of this podcast, I know I shared some with you before, but just to kind of refresh your memory, because I know you're a woman who's doing only a million things at once. So the purpose of this podcast was really inspired by Facebook censoring the fuck out of what I was trying to do, and I wanted to give women an uncensored voice, and I think that women need as many platforms as possible. I see that there are a lot of amazing women, particularly here in Appalachia, who are doing really badass stuff, and I want people to know about it. So that's where you come in. I see you doing amazing things. So I guess my first question would be, could you tell people, a bit about who you are and what makes you who you are? I know that's a really little question, but...
Well, cool. First of all, thanks for involving me in this project. It's super awesome. It's great to be in community with you, and I appreciate stubbornness about continuing to put your art and your message out there, regardless of what is thrown at you. And response to that. So
Thank you.
thanks for that. Me, let's see. I am from East Tennessee. I have been in Berea for right at 6 years now, and I have 3 children. They are 13, 15, and 18 now. So it feels pretty cool to have raised them this far and to watch them being their own free-thinking and always questioning little people, little awesome humans. So that's a big part of who I am. I also feel like I identify with the word pioneer. It comes from my past in that I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and so I spent a lot of my time, many hours on a monthly basis in door-to-door ministry work. I spent a couple of years as what that religious organization calls in pioneer work. So I was doing this 60 and 90 hours a month back when I was a young adult and teenager. And now I feel like I kind of reclaimed that word because I feel like I am pioneering some perhaps new experiences for Berea. Kind of reclaimed that and reclaimed my name not too long ago. Another part of my childhood is that Jehovah's Witnesses, they refer to their organization as the Truth with a capital T. My name, Allison, actually means truth. And so that was another, probably since I've been here in Berea, that's kind of been a reclaiming that has happened. I'm a bit of a rabble-rouser, persuader by nature. That is my leadership style, I guess. And I feel like my role, there are lots of different roles that people need to play in what I feel like is going to help us get to collective liberation. But mine is definitely the rebel and the troublemaker and the person that agitates. It's taken me a little while to find more comfort in that role myself, and a big key component in me getting comfortable in my own skin and realizing that this is okay for me to be this way is to surround myself with a group of people who supported and people who I developed friendships with that let me play my role and didn't try to ask me to be something other than what I am, and that allowed me to be really comfortable. And I feel like that's really come into play in the last couple of years with my work here and my life here in Berea.
I love that. I did not know that you were raised Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And knowing that, my first thought is, no wonder you're an atheist. Like, fuck.
I feel like that it paved the way for me to have anarchist tendencies and definitely respond to that. I never really had any kind of anything that was religious in nature of any feelings I was supposed to have. It was just like I was trying to force them. They never really felt authentic or genuine. I just knew what my role to play was in that in my household growing up, and that if questioning the things that I taught, I didn't have the feeling that everybody else did. I just went along with it, And it took me a lot of years to kind of deprogram from that and realize that it was okay, and that didn't mean something about me being messed up or broken or somehow not good enough or even evil. All those things are the things that you're told. There was a lot of deprogramming that had to happen, but I think that upbringing kind of paved the way for who I am now, for sure.
You're reminding me of, I know that we spoke once about like Facebook trying to censor you when you posted something about witches, and
yeah,
it's reminding me of, there's a book I'm reading right now called Witch, Slut, Feminist, and it outlines the words and different, I guess, ideologies that were placed upon women in order to oppress us throughout the years. So first it was a witch, then it was a slut, and now if you're a feminist, that's supposed to be a bad thing. So
right.
That's interesting, and it also definitely ties into what has been going on in town, the city council bullshit that's been going on the last week. So if you feel like glazing over what that is, you don't have to go into depth unless you really want to, because she really, really went into depth on that.
Good deal.
Yeah, people will know about that, but it makes sense. I mean, your upbringing has obviously paved the way for what you're doing in town right now, for what you're trying to advocate for religious freedom. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's directly related to that. I was raised to be judgmental of other people. There was this needing to save people, to witness to them, to try to get them to come to the truth, that kind of thing. And I think that at the same time, there was a lot of self-righteousness that I was taught, an enormous amount of hypocrisy too. And so I think I'm ultra sensitive to those things now. There's definitely still traits that I know that I still have inside myself that I always have to kind of keep in check and try to make sure that nothing is getting out of control in any way. I think those are easy things for people, for us to play into. I feel like that I'm really sensitive to trying to make room for everybody, and the religious aspect of what I really see as very blatant discriminatory behavior really kind of directed outside of a particular brand of Christianity. We have an enormous amount of Southern Baptists. Multiple of those are represented by positions of political power in our town, both within our business community and elected officials. And so instead of it being a community that feels very welcoming, it feels very much like if you don't believe the way that they do, then you don't count. You can be ostracized. You can actually be targeted. I feel like my programs I'm involved with and projects that I'm involved with in Berea have definitely come under attack because of my personal beliefs. Basically, it's even been said in public budget meetings and things like that. Comments have been made. So it is a big component of what's actually happening here in Berea. It's not about people just not getting along or why can't we be more kind. There's actual pretty rotten things that are happening, and it's easy to be kind of not want to get caught up in it, and I completely respect that. But honestly, if you've spoken out about anything in a major way, you find yourself on some sort of a list to be targeted here. I guess we're a small enough town for that kind of thing to really happen, and I'm sure your conversation with Emily has shown that, and I definitely feel like that's been my experience as well.
To that very specific point, I could be wrong, but I feel like the targeting in this town really only comes from a very small number of super conservative Christian retired old white people. Like, I don't think Berea as a town is any kind of shitty way. I feel like this is coming from a very small number of loud people, and they're loud because they're retired. They don't have anything else to do. Am I incorrect in this assumption?
I think that they are the loud ones. I think they're the fringe, when we're talking about some of the online hate stuff and harassment that has been happening. But I do think we still definitely have a white supremacist stronghold here. And I think that that's really at the core of all of this stuff. It's one of my kind of critiques about conversations about how we move forward as a community. And I think that it's amazing for us to think about how we can come together on common ground. And that's one of the reasons why I do the work that I do with First Friday and Lebanon Berea and other involvements that I have with the Arts Council, is to have that and practice that. It is kind of a quote-unquote spiritual practice for me. But I think unless we're willing to actually dig down way deep and have conversation really about some of these core fundamental belief systems, and I think that it really does go back to white supremacy kind of being at the core of this, and the history of this town and the history of this place at its founding, then I don't know that we're ever really going to move forward until certain people aren't here anymore, certain mentalities aren't here anymore. And I think that every generation it gets better because we are evolving and we are learning and we're growing, and even in rural areas it's a little behind the times, but we're getting there. And, I feel like the kind of medicine for that is when we're all sitting in a room and watching our kids play music together or sing, at the winter choral concert and that kind of thing. And that's one place when it kind of equalizes everything. I think that those kids, as they're growing up, some of the things they don't even notice, some things it's just like, why would you even question that was something that was bad? I see that with my kids, and I see that with even younger children too. It's normalized that we are different and we are unique, and that we have lots of different kinds of people in community together,
Wow, I just saw on a church sign today, I know that neither of us are godly specific, like claiming any kind of God people, but this was on a church sign, it said, love everybody, I'll sort them out. Whether there's a God that sorts people out, whatever. I feel like our own actions and behaving in a shitty manner towards people ends up like karma's a bitch, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it's really cute to hear you say, you know, I'm not trying to divide people. I'm just going to like understand that there is unity to be had in any situation and basically let God sort them out or whatever the fuck sort them out.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit on the enormity that is the Levitt Berea project and the concerts that you're bringing to our town?
Levitt Berea is a 10-week concert series down in the Old Town Artisan Village. We have received a grant from the Mortimer and Mimi Levitt Foundation. Berea has been chosen. This is the third year that we've received $25,000, which is a matching grant, and it is specifically to produce this music series, and this is about activating an underused space. We were concerned about bringing people to Old Town and energizing that with new folks, getting it to be kind of a place for people to go and hang out after dark and normalize that for Berea. So that has been one of the goals. Kind of the mission of the Levitt Foundation is to strengthen the social fabric of communities. So by having this not happen once or over the course of a weekend, but multiple times, multiple weeks in a row, it helped to bring lots of people from lots of different backgrounds together. And we see that. We see that it is a wide range of ages from what we know of our community, different faith backgrounds, different income levels and education levels. We have people who, because of where it's located in Old Town, it's very walkable by quite a few different neighborhoods, mixed income neighborhoods. And so I think that it is helping to kind of revitalize Old Town, and it feels like it's ushering in kind of a new chapter for Berea. I have felt that since I moved here. I'm sure that was probably ramping up before I got here, but it seemed like the timing was really sweet for us to try new things and to get support by folks in different positions in the city, and funding support to make that happen, and with new businesses and kind of a community of people who are being very intentional about what kind of projects they're working on and what they're doing to support their families, and the way that businesses, new restaurants, and new spaces are operating with, you know, very mission-driven and values-driven. It feels like there's more and more and more of that happening. And that's why I feel like the loud voices are really anymore, even though it's frustrating and we want to make sure that it is not violating rights, that everyone has access to the same things. That's what we want. But we also don't want to get distracted by this buzzing mosquito that just won't leave you alone, which is what a lot of that is. I know that there's more of us than that mentality that wants to shut those kinds of things down. There are more people that want to make things available and to share resources and to open up the definition of community and make sure that everybody has a role in that. So that's part of what we're doing with this music series, and it goes so much deeper than that with, you know, how we select talent, all the different kind of extra programming pieces that we put into the music series. It is very intentional.
So what was it from your pre-Berea life that you think led you to this community organizing and like revitalizing of a town?
Like I said, mother of three. I was married for a decade to their dad, and that was a pretty tumultuous situation, and married previous to that as well. Come from a background of being involved with folks who are drug addicts, family members who are drug addicts, opioid addiction, some pretty dark spaces. And so when I got out of that relationship with my children's dad, it was really kind of an open door for me to figure out who the heck I was. Because previous to that, I'd been in the Jehovah's Witness organization and very much under the thumb of my father, and then into, you know, abusive and tumultuous, toxic relationships to men that I was married to. So I needed to figure out who and what I was and what I cared about. So started kind of exploring and learning, and had to do a lot of unlearning and deprogramming. There were a lot of things. I didn't know anything about organizing. didn't know anything about the concept of social justice. Like, there were a lot of things that was just so foreign to me. Reconnected with someone who I'd gone to school with, like from kindergarten on, was introduced to the Highlander Center. I actually lived in New Market, Tennessee at the time, but had never heard of it. Started learning and growing and changing who and what I was around, and this concept of community organizing kind of came in it. I think the techniques and skills that I had from public speaking and doing everything as a Jehovah's Witness have definitely played into this canvassing and all that kind of stuff. Definitely skills that I had from my youth that I could plug into in this way. But started doing things like drum circles. I'm a hula hooper. I feel like it's a bit of a past incarnation. I don't do it as often now. And so that was kind of, had a community space in Knoxville and started doing that kind of stuff. And then started doing film screenings and wanting to be like, if we're getting together, I want to have a good time, but I also want us to have some meaningful conversation and dialogue too, and talk about important things and reflect on important things. And so we did that with art shows and film screenings and concerts, discussions, and things like that. And so when I moved from Knoxville to Berea, it made a lot of sense with the people I became involved with in the project known as Village Trough that we organized together, that those kinds of things were still what I wanted to do. And so in the confines of opening a restaurant, we also did a lot of community-centric programming and really kind of ran it more like a social center. And so I think that all that's kind of translated into everything that I've got my hands in now.
Now that you mentioned Village Trough, I'm remembering your amazing, like, local grass-fed beef burgers that were just out of this world. And they had, like, kimchi and sauerkraut. Now I'm getting hungry. Yeah. Y'all had the best damn food in town.
It's a good burger if I do say so myself.
Oh, my God. Are you going to be cooking up at Peg and All? So we haven't mentioned Peg and All, but that's coming, right? And can you talk a little bit about what that is and what your vision for that is?
After we left the space on Adams Street, we purchased a food truck, and a year after that, we rebranded from Village Trough to Peg and All Public House with the thought of opening a pub and live music venue in a garage, a 5-bay garage in Old Town. That building needs a whole lot of work. And I've also been doing a whole lot of examination about alignment for me with work and what kind of projects I want to be doing. And there was a lot of me needing to separate out the projects I was involved with other people, and then figuring out what I really wanted to do, both with my partner, Brett, and as a solo person, as a solo entrepreneur. And so while that dream for that pub and music venue is still out there, that is something that I feel like I'm phasing into. But in the meanwhile, I actually am just opening a mobile food commissary kitchen at 440 Chestnut and partnering with Erica Chambers. We've been running around together and doing some work together and having a lot of fun together for a while now, and it made a lot of sense for us to kind of join forces in a more permanent way. And so we moved her photography studio into the front half of the building, and I'm putting a kitchen in the back half of the building. We hope to do some really cool community events, house show kind of feel, film screenings, might do pop-up retail, art shows, all kinds of different things, dance parties, that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of different ideas. It's not going to be anything on a 9-to-5 basis. It's going to be a lot of pop-up and a lot of what are they doing this week, kind of how I'm approaching it. It really, for me, I've been doing so much work in the confines of the grant world and with partners and stewarding those partnerships in such a way that I really need to have a space for me to just kind of go play for a while and explore. And so I'm really looking at this as kind of like me being artist in residency. I like how that feels. I want to be really creative and outside of the box and do a lot of fun stuff here. I've been exploring a lot of different ideas for a while and doing a lot of talking to a lot of experts in business development and a lot of people who've done an amazing job of providing trainings and workshops and assistance for me to kind of get to where I am. And I feel like the time is now to close down listening to other voices and asking questions outside for a while, and me just kind of focus on what I'm trying to do. I have a real clear picture of the way that I'm trying to approach things, and I want to do what we sought to do with having a cooperative, democratic business model, and I want to take that cooperative nature and those qualities of that and maybe elevate it just a little bit and look at how I can be cooperative with other businesses and creating a particular kind of ecosystem to be part of here. And so I'm hoping that some other folks will be using the kitchen space and that other folks might be using the food truck. Hopefully this would add kind of a new spark to and a new flavor to kind of the local food scene that we have going on in Berea. But it'll be coming soon. We're right next door to the Arts Council, which is a lot of fun, and 2 doors down from Native Bagel. It's a really cool block, and right beside us, Mayor Conley, who will always be my mayor. So it's a lot of fun to be right here on this block.
I'm wondering if there are any challenges that you face in your life that you could name that have been like specifically because of being a woman.
I feel like my approach, how I question things or how I criticize things, how my body language is, particularly in some of these more tense situations, political situations that I find myself in, I have multiple times felt like I would get a pass. It would even be expected of me to advocate for myself in a significant way. A lot of times I'm labeled as hostile or argumentative or aggressive when I feel like I'm simply being assertive. I definitely, even when it's physical in nature, if someone gets in my face or actually is very physically aggressive or potentially physically violent with me, it has become my natural reaction to protect myself, to advocate for myself, to get in somebody's face, not cower, not exit. Not that that's necessarily the smartest approach sometimes, but it's just it is the natural reaction. And I feel like because I don't really take no for an answer, I'm quite tenacious. When someone tells me, oh, no, that's not the way it's done, or no, other people can do it, but you can't do that, I don't really respond to that. I look for ways around and through and over and, however I need to get around that kind of challenge. And I feel like that those are kind of things that if I presented as a man, that it wouldn't be anything that I would get so much negativity about. And I feel like that I definitely get that because I am not timid or meek or frail or any of the qualities kind of a prim and proper woman in these kind of situations,
A prim and proper woman.
Yeah, I don't reckon I'll ever be me. So.
Whatever the hell.
I mean, I don't really sit with my legs together. I'm not, I was always kind of, quote unquote tomboy growing up. I grew up with 2 brothers. And so I know how to have proper decorum and quote unquote be a lady, whatever that means in these situations. But I choose to really just be myself, even when I know sometimes it would be easier for me if I would just do the things that would help me pass, but I have an aversion to doing that. And so I think I'm always going to be swimming upstream as a result of that. But I want to pave the way in whatever small way that I can for what comes behind me. And I see what my daughter is like, and she takes no shit. And it is amazing to see her. And I want her to grow up in a world where she doesn't have this constant trying to silence and conform and fit. And so hopefully I can model that for her in whatever way that she can question and she can advocate for herself and she can be whoever and whatever she wants to be. And she should not shy away from going after whatever that is. And my boys see that too. So.
Hey, women, I'm just sitting here nodding my head, and don't ever hesitate to recognize that you are making a difference. You absolutely are. And it is convenient, I think, for others when women do not stand up. And I think for a long time we have been afraid to for good reason, because we have received severe punishment, death, rape, torture, you fucking name it, for speaking up. And I think that is in our DNA. I feel it in my own throat every time I go to speak up for myself, every time I go to even perform as a musician. It's in my body. So keep speaking up, keep doing it. I know you can't help it, because I feel you. I can't help it either. Like, you're going to have to kill me if you want me to shut up. So
that's exactly right. Yes.
I'm wondering what your relationship is to the word feminism. How do you define that? Do you feel like a feminist?
I think a lot of it has been like I said, this waking up, trying to understand this aspect of the world has really just been in the last few years that kind of transformation has happened. And so it was definitely something that was really negative prior to that. I don't know that I remember spending a lot of time in my household or anything talking about it, but I knew that the patriarchy ruled at my house. And so me coming out and being like, I'm a feminist, that is not a way that I have self-described. But coming into a greater understanding that it is really about balance, about getting the world to come back into balance. And that, that it is not, feminism is not about women. It is really about equality for everyone. I think that is where my comfort with I applied for a grant a couple of years ago, and in answering the question about feminism, I really went hardcore into identifying as a witch in the context of not being, a religious Wiccan, but in that saying things, having the outspokenness, having the nature that questions and that does not conform, and that can even rail against some of these oppressive systems. It's so easy. I mean, it really is. It feels like a modern-day witch hunt here sometimes, and I know that that's happening as a response because, every time that we take the patriarchy down a notch, then there's backlash, for that loss of power. But that really is where I feel like that I identify my feminism very strongly right now, is in that, owning that label for myself of really knowing that that's what this was about long ago. It wasn't necessarily that, these people had supernatural powers or were doing things. It was that they were tapping into their wise women roots, and they were being medicine women for their, communities and their villages, and that they were the people that were, birthing children, and that they were doing all this really important work to care for basically society, and doing that outside of the confines of these traditional structures. And as people have tried to stomp that out because there's so much power in having that knowledge, then we found ourselves burning people at the stake. That's where I really kind of feel like my feminism lives right now, is knowing that it's really important to continue to have those people that are willing to speak out in whatever way, regardless of whatever the consequence.
If you're not doing something you would have been killed for 500 years ago, are you even living?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So, as an Appalachian nymph, Allie Blair,
yes.
What are your feelings about Appalachia? Like, are there things that you wish people knew about Appalachia? Like, when you hear the word, what do you feel about this place?
It's part of my culture. I feel like that, I come from this because of my relationship after leaving my parents' home. They call it the lost cause myth, the myth of the lost cause or whatever. The Southern heritage, not hate, BS messaging. I spent a lot of time in that because of the upbringing of my partners for those years. And so I think that that's another part of realizing that, kind of reframing that for what this quote-unquote Southern culture was, and looking at this Appalachian culture of resistance. Honestly, if you look at the United States, the South kind of being the quote-unquote dirt or whatever of the United States, and Appalachia is kind of even worse than that. And knowing that that's how we're kind of viewed backwards, and that we don't know how to get ourselves out of a situation, why so many people have voted for Trump here and this, that, and the other. Knowing that those are not simple conversations and not simple the stereotypes that go with that. We're so much more complex than that. I think, not only is the actual physical land. I grew up, of course, like in East Tennessee and kind of the foothills of the Smokies, and being and driving, especially through urban, knowing that the land is so beautiful, but what really is amazing is the people and the kind of spirit of the people. And even though there have been a lot of challenges, especially economic challenges, opioid and addiction and all the drug issues that we have that are completely destroying communities, but there's an enormous amount of both resistance that is actually turned into resilience here. And I think that that's, I identify as part of my culture, and so that's something that I feel like those are the messages that we want to get out beyond these few states and these few counties and this area that we're in. We want other people to know that about us. And I think that right now we've got amazing people doing amazing things, specifically here in kind of central Appalachia and especially eastern Kentucky and West Virginia. And we're creative and amazing, resourceful people. And I think that there's a lot more of that tenacity that goes along with being from this region. So, yeah, go Appalachia.
Damn straight. So when you're facing challenges, what gets you through when you're dealing with hard shit right now?
I have an amazing partner in Brett Hetzel. He's really a super tender spirit. In some ways, I feel like that our relationship is really fluid in that sometimes I feel more masculine and I think he feels more feminine, and it allows me to kind of tap into, because I've had to take care of myself a lot, so I have tapped into masculine energy a lot when I needed to take care of myself, and sometimes that means that I can be kind of cold to other people outside. It's a survival mechanism or whatever. He helps to keep me soft. I think that he's definitely helped me to kind of grow into who I am by having the courage to do that, knowing that he was supportive all along the way. So I don't know that I'd be where I am, definitely not have the courage just to go out and fight it without him being in my corner. So he's a big part of it. I don't feel like that my close friendships are very many in number, but they are high quality, and I have spent a lot of time really kind of nurturing some really amazing friendships, specifically with women, and that was a challenge for me, just with some stuff that happened in my background. So I have a pretty tight-knit, awesome group of people that really has been there for me in challenging moments, and just to even, send a little encouraging word or whatever. So that's been part of what I could rely on when times have been kind of tough. Definitely my kids have always been what helps me keep going, have gotten me out of my very darkest times. That's what coaxed me out, was knowing that I couldn't quit because I had them. So that's a big component of it. And honestly, freaking music, man. Like, I listen to a lot of music, and and not too awful long ago, it was just like, man, this is really how you get through. That helps keep me soft too. I can go and I can feel however I need to feel. I can go dive deep down into melancholy and just wallow in it by listening to the right kind of music. And it is definitely a salve. It's medicine, and I love that has become part of how I actually, provide for myself as well, as to be around a musical environment.
So what is your vision for the future? How do you see things going for the human race?
Oh, gosh.
Right? I mean, if you're anything like me, you probably think about it every damn day. I mean,
goodness. Well,
and what do you hope to happen? And I know that you're working to build something. And obviously, if you didn't believe in it, if you didn't have hope that what you're working towards was going to be successful, you wouldn't do it. That's just how we work as humans. So,
yeah,
I guess a better question would be, what are you trying to create?
I felt like that I was home basing here in this specific community because my children are really happy here. I moved up here and we considered leaving, we considered going different places, but I felt like if my kids really wanted to be here and I was staying, in large part because of their community that they had built here, their friends, their routine, all those kinds of things, then I wanted to do whatever I could to try to make it a place that felt like a better place, to leave it after I was here. And so that's where a lot of the work that I do has come from, is creating the kind of community that I want to be part of. I feel like I want to keep growing, and I want to keep participating in a culture of kind of forever learning. I love that about this particular place, but I hope that that's what more of us can move toward as a society, learning from one another. You think about getting to the end of something, and I don't think that there is an end to it. What is the Rising Appalachia, the song that they do, Caminando? You make the road by walking. You don't ever get to the end. If you think that you're getting to justice as like an end, a finish line or something, you're never going to get there. But if we are working to try to make a more loving, a more accepting, a more open, and more equitable situation for us all to be in together, then yeah, I guess that's what I'm hoping for.
Rock, my heart just grew 3 sizes. Oh, is there anything else that you want to say, want people to know, want people to hear?
Listen to your next podcast. It's been fun. I'm excited to hear what else you've got going on and the other conversations that you have with people. I want anybody who may listen to this and think, that some sort of an interaction or a path crossing with me would in some way benefit them, or they have an idea that they'd like to talk about, or something that they're trying to get to come to fruition, or anything that they'd like to partner on, that I'm super open to any of that. I want to connect with people who want to be really creative about how we problem solve and how we approach our challenges here, and people who are really interested in like radical joy, like fierce joy, and letting that be a core of also what we're doing when we're organizing together. So if anybody's down for that kind of thing, they should get at me.
And how can people reach you?
You can find me most appropriately through the First Friday. So First Friday Berea at gmail.com. On Facebook, same thing. If you go to First Friday Berea, find me that way, private message me. You can oftentimes find me at Rio Grande on a patio sipping on a margarita while the weather is good.
Oh my God, they're margaritas. Those margaritas are so strong. I love them.
Yeah, exactly. And at 440 Chestnut Street, this space is, we haven't launched everything yet, like I said, but it is known as Rebel Studio and Lounge. We should have signs and everything up before too long. So you can find me there.
Thank you so much for talking with me, Allie.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really, really, really appreciate this opportunity. And it was so great to have you play for Levitt Ant. It was really great to have you kick off the music series that night and see everybody kind of in rapt attention listening to you while you were sharing your message and your art with me.
Is that what they were like? I had no idea.
They were. It was very, like, I was kind of off to the side observing, but, like, everybody was so quiet and they were just staring at you, and it was like, it was a very special kind of rapt attention is definitely how I would term it.
That was such a wonderful interview. I'm really glad to have gotten to sit down with Allie. And now for the feminist pro tip of the week. Embrace your inner witch. Haters are going to hate, like Taylor Swift said, and they sure do seem to be spectacularly roused by women who step out of line, ask questions, and make demands, challenging folks to a higher standard. But the alternative to generating heat from those who would rather a woman be seen and not heard, honestly, is often shriveling inside ourselves. You would have to kill me if you want me to shut up, because honestly, the silence would eat me up from the inside anyway. You might as well go down in flames. Ain't none of us getting out of here alive, as my father has famously said. And I do hate to leave you with a witch burning metaphor, but because it is a painful remembrance, and it is a horrific thing that happened to our sisters, and some of our brothers in the past, but mostly sisters. But I do think that collective pain of my ancestors having been burnt at the stake, having been persecuted for being their powerful selves and not deferring to men around them, I think that pain is what comes up sometimes when I'm about to perform or when I'm about to say something incendiary that it just really is burning me up, and I feel like I have to say it. It needs to be said, even though I'm definitely going to get some shit for it. I feel like that remembrance is the feeling that clenches my throat every time before I go to perform. There's this, I get a little bit sick right before I go to perform. It almost never fails. And for me, I think it would not be a stretch to say that I'm in some ways tapping into the fear of my ancestors and the knowledge that speaking out can be very dangerous for us, but not doing so would be a murder on my soul. It's no way to live for me. I can't live in silence anymore. I did that for a long time, and it was inauthentic, and it was really painful. So, I mean, life's going to be painful either way, and I would rather those pains not come from me hurting myself by not being myself. You know what I mean?
And before we wrap up this 4th episode of Musings from the Rainbow Sparkle Palace, there is this question of the week that I have for you. What is your dream? What is your creative vision? What do you want to create? It doesn't have to be creative in the usual sense of the word, but what desires are burning in you? As Allie said in the interview this evening, there are myriad ways that she is ready to collaborate with people who want to create. And I am always here to be a cheerleader and share resources with you on how I came to decide and finally go after and realize my creative dream of being a musician. So you can write me info@rainbowstarmusic. Let me know if you would be cool with me sharing your story on the air. And you can find all kinds of goodies and videos at the show notes, which are at rainbowstarmusic.com/episode 4. You can always find the show notes at rainbowstarmusic.com/podcast. You can listen to the podcast on any of your favorite platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. Just search Musings from the Rainbow Sparkle Palace. You can find us on Insta at Palace Podcast. This episode was written, edited, and produced by me, Rainbow Star, and the background music is also written by me. New episodes release every Wednesday, so keep coming back. You're welcome to subscribe, rate, review, and share, and let others know that feminist voices are well worth hearing. Stay fierce, stay sparkly.
Oh, Kentucky, don't you know I'm feeling pretty lucky when I'm finding